Welcome to the Confidence Through Health podcast. My name is Jerry Snyder. As a health, wellness, and sports performance coach, my goal each week is to bring you experts to help you take control of your health and build your self-confidence. Thanks for including me today on your journey to better health. I want to say thank you to Social Media Cowboys for sponsoring this week's episode of the Confidence Through Health podcast. If you need help with a website, if you need social media needs for your business, if you need help with AdWords, SEO, all those things that you know you should be doing, but you are too busy to do or you're too confused about, they are the experts that you need in your corner. If you're interested in launching a podcast, such as mine, they help me edit my podcast and do a fantastic job making sure that all of the technical side of it is handled and we launch a nice, neat, edited podcast episode each week. So I want to thank Social Media Cowboys for their continued sponsorship of the Confidence Through Health podcast. You can find them at socialmediacowboys.com, or you can find them as well with other sponsors at confidencethroughhealth.com. Well, Dr. Schiffer, I want to thank you for being a guest on the Confidence Through Health podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So, and as I was telling you before we recorded, one of the things that I especially was interested in having you on is because of the book that you wrote, which is Goodbye Anxiety, Depression, Addictions, and PTSD. And in the research that you've done and the stuff that you've seen with the patients you've dealt with and how to help people get past these things that can be, they can tear your life apart. So, but before we get into all that, like tell us a little bit about why psychology was something that was interesting to you.
I came from a dysfunctional family and suffered a severe depression when I went off to college and had to take time off and had a lot of psychoanalytic therapy and got back on my horse but I didn't intend to go into psychiatry. I was going into cardiology and got a fellowship at Harvard to do research. And I was doing research on stress and heart disease and published a couple of papers and it was going well. But I wanted to round out my education. So I did fellowship residency in psychiatry at McLean. Yeah. And then I found I really liked it, and I couldn't market the cardiopsychiatry piece that the cardiologist wanted nothing to do with the psychiatrist, and neither did the cardiac patients.
Yeah.
And I found that I really enjoyed working with people and doing psychotherapy and I witnessed the revolution from psychoanalysis and psychodynamic therapy to the current drug therapy, insurance limited coverage that took place over the 1980s. And by 1990, it was completed. So today, there's very little talking, or if there is, it's more cognitive behavior therapy, which doesn't get into the deep trauma, where it tries to suppress rather than understand the trauma. And so my interest is in helping the person to understand their trauma. And usually when people come in to see me, they're not aware of what their trauma was. They just they have an alcohol problem or a drug problem, or they're depressed, and so they're a depressive, rather than someone who's been traumatized and has a reason for their depression or their alcoholism. And what my book is about is 30 years of research at Harvard on this, on a hypothesis that I've developed and tested extensively, that each brain, our left brain and our right brain, are capable of having independent minds. Now they're similar and they live in the same body and they have the same address. But one side is more affected by past traumas. And so I have an easy way of stimulating one side or the other.
Hmm.
And I have a conversation with two people in a therapy session. And I have these sunglasses that we're going to
Yeah.
try to get them produced and
Right.
marketed, and they stimulate one side or the other. That the eyes are connected to the
Mhm.
brain in such a way that's very, very easy to stimulate
Right.
one side or the other. And so I'll have two different conversations with the person, depending on which side they're looking at.
Oh, wow.
And one side, they're more immature. They feel more anxious and they're more symptomatic. On the other side, and sometimes for the first time, they feel well and it's something that you can try if you want, and your listeners can try if you get a like an envelope.
Hmm.
I have this thing here. If you cover one eye and the middle of the other eye, so you're looking out half of one eye,
Right.
and that actually stimulates the opposite brain. So if I go like
Oh,
this,
okay.
I'm actually stimulating my right brain. I'm looking at
Correct.
my left lateral visual field, and
Yeah.
then and if I go like this, I'm stimulating my right brain, and it's very interesting. I can have two different conversations, and someone might have drug cravings on one side, not the other side.
Oh, wow.
And we have a study that we're conducting with McLean Hospital, and I have a startup company where we're treating fentanyl addiction. And,
Mm.
and we have 130 participants enrolled, and about half of them are doing extremely well. And
Yeah.
we think they're the ones that are getting treated.
Yeah.
And what the treatment is it's an LED that we place over the positive hemisphere. And so we do this visual test first to
Right.
determine where to put the light.
Okay.
And people get treated twice a week for 6 weeks, and then once a week for 20 weeks.
Okay.
And the study at my site has been completed, and we're waiting for McLean to finish, and they'll finish at the end of November,
Okay.
and we'll reduce the data, and we're we're anticipating very strong results, but
Right.
I don't know that. We'll know early December.
Okay. Okay. So, and I read up a little bit about like it, the two different minds. Um, and you mentioned one is a little more immature,
Yeah,
and one's
you want to
more
try it? We can
adult,
use you as a
right?
demonstration.
And so,
Uh,
but is it the same on both on everybody? Like, is it the same side on everybody, or is it?
no, I think it depends on the type of trauma and the time of the
Mhm.
trauma. Although I don't know,
Yeah.
and I'm actually surprised that just this little bit of simulation,
Right.
evokes a powerful change.
Right.
And almost all of my patients wear these sunglasses, and they, I would say 90%, not
Mhm.
everyone, but most people use them a great deal, and they're very helpful. And your audience, like if somebody's upset and they find that looking out this side helps them feel
Mhm.
better, it sort of evokes a different personality, and a person can feel more confident and have a sense of, oh no, I can do that. In fact, what I like to do is go like this. If something's bothering me,
Yeah.
I'll go like this until I get a sense. No, I can handle that, and then I can put it
Oh,
down, and it sort of stays.
right.
And so it's something that your listeners can take home with them now, as long as they get some junk mail.
Right. So, and does that work for like for any kind of trauma, like any level of trauma, whether it's like a, like a small little thing that just was just enough to trigger something, or those big traumas that we know that we're trying to suppress because we don't want to deal with them?
Um, well, That's a good question. I have a small window in the world,
Mhm.
and so I haven't, studied 10,000 people.
Right, right.
100 or 200, and so and most of the people that I see are people like me who come from dysfunctional families
Right.
and have that kind of psychological trauma. What I haven't, I've had a few uh, uh, incest victims and I've had a number of people with alcoholic fathers
Hmm.
who were very violent and these techniques work for them and work for more subtle kinds of
Okay.
abuse.
Okay.
And I define abuse differently than the American Psychiatric Association. So to me, abuse is whatever harms us, whatever hurts us,
Mhm.
and so it might be something that you don't recognize as abuse. In other
Right.
words, or as trauma. In other words, you might uh, have a teacher who picks on you,
Hmm.
and or a parent who is absent or demeaning,
Right.
and these are things that we don't recognize as traumas, and that children always assume that it's their fault, whatever's going
Hmm.
on. So if your parents get divorced, the child thinks it's his fault. He wasn't a good
Right.
enough child,
Right.
and spends his life trying to be better and get the parents together.
Right. And so that's why like siblings can say, oh, my parents were great, and the other one be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
that's right.
It's because the abuse is what the perceive is on the person, not
That's right.
not just did they hit you or did they talk bad to you or
Yeah, yeah, and of course that's a trauma too, and
sure.
I see that.
Yeah.
Uh, but um, uh, but even that, even if someone were obviously abused, thrown down the stairs by a drunken father,
Right.
when the patient comes in, they're not aware that that's still bothering them. That happened years ago, and
Hmm.
and uh, and what I'm finding is that no, that trauma is alive and well and living in half your brain,
Right.
and it needs to be treated.
Yeah.
And uh, so even those severe traumas aren't recognized.
Yeah.
It's not that there's an amnesia necessarily. Some occasionally there is,
Mhm.
but more is just that it's not recognized as salient or important. Uh, you know, happened so long ago.
Right. Right. Why would that still be affecting me? Type of,
Exactly.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And does the does the dominance change over time or is
Yeah,
it,
the way I envision it is
yeah.
Steve Martin and Lily Tomlin made a movie
Hmm.
in the '80s
Yep.
called The Two of Us,
Yeah.
and the premise was that Lily Tomlin uh, had there was she was with her guru meditating, and there was a terrible accident that the humming bowl slipped out of the guru's hands and tumbled down a very tall flight of stairs in Manhattan.
Yeah.
And as a result of this accident, Lily Tomlin's mind got embedded in Steve Martin's brain.
Yeah.
And so Steve Martin is the embodiment, and Lily Tomlin is screaming at him. She wants to go downtown, and he
Yeah.
wants to go uptown, and so he's going like this,
Hmm.
and this is very much what I'm describing. So that a person may not want to go to the liquor store,
Hmm.
but finds himself driving there against his will,
Right. Right.
and uh, and it really is like Lily Tomlin and Steve Martin sort of fighting about what to do,
Yeah.
um, and just like with two people like Lily Tomlin and Steve Martin, you can encourage one. You can say to Steve Martin, "Don't take that. Stand up
Right.
and it might embolden him, and he might become more dominant.
Hmm.
Or someone might say to Lily Tomlin." don't take that from him.
Yeah.
You're a strong person. You can assert yourself, and that might encourage her to be more dominant.
Right.
And so there is a shift in dominance, and a lot of times we wake up in the morning feeling anxious, or very often it's 3 o'clock in the morning. We wake up and we're wide awake, and it's the trauma in that one
Mm,
side. And if
interesting.
that happens to me, I go downstairs and I talk to Freddie,
Yeah.
and we have a good conversation, and I can go back to bed usually.
Yeah.
And uh, so the dominance shifts, and that's one of the functions of dual brain psychotherapy
Mhm.
is to try to encourage the healthier side to lead, but to lead in a loving way,
Right.
and to, instead of the two of them sabotaging each other and trying to kill each other, uh, to find that they're living together and they need to get along,
Right.
and love and help each other, cooperate, and they do, or in most cases,
Yeah.
and that's sort of the goal of dual brain psychotherapy.
So it's not so much trying to get the other one to just be completely submissive and just
Exactly,
it.
exactly. It's to, for instance, I'll talk to the troubled side, and I'll say, uh, "So you're feeling a lot of anxiety. What's that remind you of?" And we get to, well, yeah, it is like when my father threw me down the stairs, and well, that must have really been terrifying.
Mhm.
And how do you bear that? When do you cope with that? And so it's sort of like ordinary psychotherapy, but with a framework that's
Right.
extremely helpful.
Yeah.
And so we help the person see that, uh, uh, do you feel like your father's still here? So I always frame it in a question rather than a statement, because a statement just bounces back, and it's like, if you think that, you're stupid. Uh,
Right. Right.
Whereas, do you feel that you're in danger with your father? Uh, yeah, maybe I do, but it opens the question,
Yeah.
and then try and teach him that it wasn't his fault, and that he isn't in the danger that he's been experiencing or
Mhm.
believing that he is,
Right.
and so we try and get him to be less affected by the trauma, and to try to cooperate with the other part, not see the other part as an enemy,
Mhm.
and that that just wants to suppress them and get rid of them.
Right. And because you alluded to this earlier, that addictions, depression, things like that their trigger, their root is in something else.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
yes, cocaine is addictive because, or, different things are addictive because of the way they make you feel. But to start that process, whereas while somebody can go and can't control themselves, and others can have, one drink a week and they're fine. And,
Yeah, I think that uh, I had the year 2000. I had my gallbladder taken out,
mhm,
and when I woke up, it was a severe pain I
yeah,
hadn't felt before. And the nurse came over and said, "Would you like a pain pill?" And I hadn't thought about that. I said,
yeah,
"Yeah, yeah, I would,"
yeah,
and it really worked.
yeah,
And some hours later, she came back and she said, "Would you like another pain pill?" And my pain had returned. And I said, "Yeah, yeah, I would." And then in the morning, another nurse came in and said, "Would you like a pain pill?" And I had recovered enough, so there was some pain, but it wasn't at sharp edge. I
sure.
said, "No, I don't need it." And whereas if I were treating trauma, say opioids are very good for trauma.
Mhm,
It's just you can't control it, and then they run your life. So
right.
and a lot of times with trauma, the immature part of us comes up with destructive solutions, and
Mhm,
that's one of the things I have to deal with as a
gotcha.
psychiatrist. And one of the destructive solutions is turning to alcohol or opioids or not that far down the line, there's a cliff,
Yeah.
and it becomes very damaging. Um, uh, but the purpose of alcohol and opioids and other substances is to treat the trauma. And initially they're good at it. They're the best things going for it.
Right.
And Suboxone is good for treating depression. Suboxone is a opiate agonist, so it's used to treat heroin cravings. And it's incomplete, but it does help treat the trauma. That's why people stay on it or look for opioids.
Right. Because what it's doing is ultimately it's changing the brain chemistry for that short amount of time that the exposure's there, right?
Yeah, and if they keep using it, it's a long period of time.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
But then you get tolerance, and it stops working, and they get a bigger dose and become intoxicated or overdose, and become bankrupt and can't work because impaired. It's not a good solution. A better solution would be to understand your trauma, help yourself bear it and grieve it and process it, and get the healthy side to be a co-therapist and to lead and be helpful.
Right. And with the LED therapy you mentioned, that's basically is that doing the same thing as far as changing the chemistry in the brain for the exposure time period?
What it's doing in terms of the chemistry, I don't know.
Right.
And I don't think it's mainly chemistry. I think it's more of a quantum physics effect, because it works very quickly. And so it's not like, I mean, I'm sure it changes. Any experience that we have changes our chemistry.
Sure.
And it's just the way the brain works. But whether brain chemistry is the primary cause of depression or not, I think that's unknown. I don't think that that's true. I think that the brain is very responsive to the environment and to traumas, and if you are living a destructive life, your brain chemistry will change, whether that's the primary cause or not. It can sustain it. But what the light does is it's sort of the same thing as the eye blocking, only it's more powerful. And the light actually goes through the skull. It goes up here or on the other side over here, depending on which hemisphere we want to stimulate. And it's just a 4-minute treatment. And now we're going to increase it to 8 minutes. So it's an LED. It's a near infrared light, not the kind you get on the internet, because this is much more powerful. And it goes through the skull into the brain. And we've had no serious, really any side effects from it in any of the studies. And so it's very safe, which is very unusual. And people in my practice usually after the treatment say, "Wow, that feels good," and if I put it on the other side because I want to bring out the little boy, it'll bring that out. And so what it's doing is it's arousing either the healthy mind or the troubled mind. And so, like in the study with the fentanyl addiction, we always put it over the healthy mind. We're not doing psychotherapy with them. And that it works pretty well. Now, it's not magic. It's not that their life is all set now. But most of them have drastically reduced their fentanyl use or become abstinent, and they look better, and so there's a big improvement, whether it lasts or not. But if this becomes available through the FDA, if we have good results, they approve it. then people can take it, for years.
Yeah.
It's not something you have to stop.
Right.
I use it every day. I use it for cognitive enhancement.
Hmm. Well, that was going to be my next question as far as like, the frequency of use. And I'm sure that's something that you're still looking at and trying to
Yeah,
evaluate what is the best. And I would imagine that there's probably a link between how long you've been in this addiction or habit or depression and how frequent you need to use it, or maybe that can tailor off as you get, farther
uh,
away from it.
well, we're only treating twice a week,
Mhm.
and then once a week, and that's because of financial limitations
Sure.
and how often people want to come in. Eventually, we might be able to have home units
Right.
where doctors can prescribe a unit, or it might be for wellness.
Mhm.
And uh, so it's a big help.
Yeah.
It isn't a miracle,
Right.
but it's a dramatic improvement, especially when you compare it to the placebo group.
Mhm.
And in our first study, which is published and completed, there was a 72% or 71% decrease in cravings with 4 weeks of treatment twice a week. And the sham group, which is the same light, only it has a cover over it, so they
Mhm.
feel warmth, but not they don't get any light.
Gotcha.
And So they had a 35% decrease in cravings,
Okay.
and uh, and that was very highly significant
Yeah.
statistically. And so it's been fun. It's been
Yeah.
fun for me. And you can I've just finished a study on depression, and we got very very powerful results with a new device that stimulates one side and inhibits the other side
Mhm.
by pulsing very slowly. And
And
um,
so, and well, that just triggered a question like from a thought from the depression person,
yeah,
because somebody who's depressed, and I've got people in my family that have been diagnosed clinically depressed.
right.
Um, but then they can be in a situation, whether it's in an environment or with certain people,
Mhm.
and you might look at them and go like, "There's nothing wrong with you."
Yeah,
But
exactly.
then,
And
the
they
other
probably
20,
switch hemispheres. They probably
right?
think
That's what I'm thinking.
what I do like this, but the
Yeah.
environment, it's sort of what a good coach does. A
Mhm.
good coach brings out the stronger part of it. And a bad coach is punitive or
Mhm.
insulting, and usually brings out the traumatized part,
Right.
and messes up the athlete.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
So that's interesting that is there is there any correlation between, that dominance piece and finding that and being able to, like if you were with that person and you saw that change, if they were a patient of yours and you saw that change in that environment, to be able to trigger that and go like, what are you thinking? What are you,
Yeah, in fact, I do that. That's what I
yeah,
do. So these glasses are designed. Again, I'll hold them up. See, I don't
yeah,
know if you can see that one side has like a clear window.
yeah.
Okay, so you put one like this, and you look, and it stimulates right now this brain. And
Okay.
if you flip them over, they're
Ah,
symmetrical.
right.
It now stimulates this brain.
Yep.
So during the session, I'll be talking with a patient over here, and maybe I'm talking to the little boy, and we're talking about the trauma. And by the way, I don't see depressed people. I
Mhm.
see traumatized people who are
Right.
depressed,
Who are depressed, right?
and then I think it does a lot of harm when somebody's told, "Oh, you're bipolar."
Hmm.
Or you've got a major depressive disorder, and all of these diagnoses are insulting and
Yeah.
unfounded,
Yeah.
and that it all comes out of different traumas, and the way that the person tries to address the trauma, right? And
Right.
usually uh, uh, they're destructive things that women with alcoholic fathers tend to marry alcoholic men,
Right.
and that we tend to repeat our trauma.
Yeah.
And so understanding how that works and how these attempts at treating the trauma actually aggravate it.
Yeah.
And that's another interesting thing is that I have a lot of men whose mothers said to them, "Oh, you're a loser, you're never going to mount anything," and they're 3 years old.
Yeah.
And so they go to school and they don't do well in school because they've been traumatized at home. And then the teacher yells at them, and then other kids avoid them, and they get in
Right.
with another group of kids who are also traumatized, and then
Yeah.
they get into drugs, and they can't go to college, um, and so the trauma kind of snowballs on itself over a lifetime, and by the time the person gets into alcohol, he's an alcoholic. He's not a trauma victim, and he
Right.
forgets all about the trauma that preceded it and led
Yeah.
to it. Where he's got a depressive disorder. He's
Mhm.
got major depression, uh, and uh, and I think all of these diagnoses are uninformed,
Mhm.
and that they all go back to a trauma that needs to be addressed and treated.
Right. Right. Um, and that can be, really difficult for people to do on their own. It can be done, but depending on how big the trauma was or how close personal the
Sure.
trauma was, and so it's that piece is something where like getting rid of the stigma that's out there of like, oh, you need to see a counselor or a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Like, why would you need that? Like getting rid of
And it's
that
hard to
stigma.
find a good therapist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because a lot of them, and it's in a lot of doctors, and you sort of mentioned this early on, it's, oh, well, hey, they've got this great drug for that,
Yeah.
that's gonna
Actually,
calm your
they don't.
symptoms.
Yeah, that the antidepressants are embarrassingly ineffective.
Mhm.
That they do about as good as a sugar pill
Yeah.
in large studies. There's a small group of extremely depressed people who seem to benefit from them. And what most psychiatrists feel about these studies is that the placebo is too good, which doesn't make any sense.
That's funny. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. That's a funny thing to say. Um, so when we're when we've experienced trauma,
Mhm.
right? Like maybe we know we've experienced something like it was really recent, especially as we get older, we can sort of pick these things out and go like,
Right.
I'm in a traumatizing relationship or work, environment where the boss is really, I need to get out of this. Um, how can is it best to like to just right at that moment deal with it, make sure that we've talked it through, make sure that it's not something that's going to linger. Um, because I know a lot of people, especially in the 80s and 90s, is growing up as kids, we were taught just stuff your feelings down. If it hurts, just stuff it away. Just don't talk about it. Guys, boys don't cry, that kind of stuff. So for that immediate trauma that just happened, it's important for us to go ahead and deal with that now and not just move on with life because life is busy.
But the question would be, so how would you deal with it?
Right.
Uh, and and uh, and that's where I think that uh, this work becomes useful. In other
Mhm.
words, if something upsets me, I know to go to little Freddie,
Right.
and I can understand why the insult uh, really upset me,
Yeah.
and so I can it's then I can work on it. But if you don't understand that connection, it's you get lost,
Yeah.
so it's very hard to fix it in the moment.
Yeah.
And so there's a real advantage to understanding one's trauma.
Yeah. And the easier thing, unfortunately, is there's a liquor store on the corner. And
Uh-huh.
let me just wash this feeling away. with something that's gonna physically change the chemistry in my brain to where I'm gonna feel either nothing or so relaxed or just for a very short time, and then I'll have to
Right.
deal with it in the future.
Usually that doesn't work
Right.
well. I remember when I was in medical school, I had a final exam in pharmacology or fact, microbiology. I'm not sure which it was.
Yeah.
And I was out for 2 weeks with a horrible flu, and I had to really catch up. And I was studying so hard. I was like a locomotive. I was so to shoot you, and I took the exam and knew I did well. And I came home and I couldn't stop. I was like,
Hmm.
a little manicky. I was kind of,
Yeah.
still hyped up. And I went to a liquor store, and I never drink. Or yeah, socially I might.
Yeah.
And I got a pint of Seagram's 7
Yeah.
liquor, and drank most of it, and
Yeah.
I was really drunk. I fell asleep and woke up and I was fine, and didn't go back to that.
Right.
So in that instance, it actually worked, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't advise people to do that.
Right. Right. Yeah. Because it is teetering on the edge of, you
Yeah,
could
but
totally
here
change
it
your
was
life in
an
the wrong way.
isolated incident, that
Yeah.
I had. I just couldn't stop
Yep.
my adrenaline from going,
Yeah. Yep. Um, so for people that are, and you did you gave us a great example of how to figure out or which brain
Yeah.
we're in the moment. Um, and how quickly do we switch back and forth? Like, is that something that,
Well, it's interesting, and again, if you want to try it, we can see that it works within seconds,
Hmm.
and I don't know why. Now we know that the wiring from the lateral visual field connects strongly to the opposite brain.
right,
And we did a study at McLean Hospital where we put people in the fMRI scanner. And what that does is it measures blood flow in the brain. And when they look to one side, as I demonstrated, the opposite brain lights up
hmm,
relatively to the other side. So one side looks dark. Again, it's relative. It's not that
sure,
the side isn't working.
yeah,
The other side, it looks like a Christmas tree. And throughout the most of the brain, it's mostly in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex and the uh, occipital area where vision takes place.
yeah,
Um, but it's really throughout the whole brain and the whole hemisphere. And so we have this fMRI evidence that there is an actual quick physical response. So they would look for 30 seconds to one side, 30
hmm,
seconds to the other side, and had tape glasses that had tape in the middle. And if you
right,
looked at one way, you blocked the other eye.
right.
And uh, so it's kind of remarkable that it
That
happens so
is.
strongly and so that I can actually have a conversation
Hmm.
with the person and they'll feel differently and they report that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And so what people can do is discover which is their uh, healthier side.
Mhm.
And when they feel traumatized or whatever, want to increase their functioning, just look out this side
Right.
until you get a sense of, oh, I can handle this.
Yeah.
And with the sunglasses, uh, you can wear them for a long period of time. They sort of
Right.
do the same thing.
Right. Right. No, it's fascinating. And I mean, it's fascinating how the brain works and how the mind works. And
In one sense, it's very simple and it's so complicated.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah. And I love that you're doing this work and that you're helping people in this way. And this is, it's like I said, it's fascinating information of how, like, we can we can start to help ourselves if we just know these things about what's going on in our mind.
Hmm.
and that
And
we're not
let
crazy
me
if we've got two
suggest,
things.
yeah, let me suggest that people go to a website. It's called
Mhm.
dualbrainpsychology.com.
Okay.
And I think I think a lot of people will be helped if they read my book.
Yep.
It's geared for the public,
Yeah.
and it's geared to be helpful. Uh, and uh,
And can they get the book on the website?
yeah, it's on
Okay, perfect.
Amazon.com,
Yep.
and you can get it on the website. Yeah,
Awesome. Awesome.
or the website takes you to Amazon.
Sure. Well, I will link that in the show notes as well so they can get there quickly because I think that this is something I'm definitely going to share with family members that I know struggle with some of these issues. And I mean, friends and family, everybody that
Mhm.
that needs it. Because it's amazing how something what I would say so simple is just blocking parts of what your vision, your viewpoint
Mhm.
to be able to go, okay, what am I doing? How is my brain working? Um,
Yeah, do you
and
want to give it a try, or you don't?
no, yeah, we can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have like a card or something like that, huh?
Yep. I've got actually an envelope right here.
Okay.
So
So
sure.
cover one eye and the middle of the other eye.
So about
There you go.
there.
That's perfect.
Okay.
Right. Okay, and maybe think of something upsetting,
Okay.
um, and sort of see how you feel. And so, how much distress or anxiety do you feel from 0 to 10? So 0 would be none, 10 would be extreme.
Right. Probably, one or two, not very much.
Okay, and try the other side.
Okay. About there.
Yeah, yeah, that's very good.
Okay.
And again, think of the same situation.
My skin just lit up. Like I can feel the tense like starting to get, so yeah,
Uh-huh.
same situation. So wow.
So what are you feeling over here?
So yeah, I mean I'm feeling anxious, and a little nervousness. But yeah, I'm starting to boil, I'm getting angry.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay, and all that's due to the trauma.
yeah, that's all yeah,
So if you were in psychotherapy with me, we would talk about this and what's this
right,
sort of kind you of, and
right.
and then
Wow.
we try and get your other side to help you. And what you can do in the meantime is if somebody gets you angry, you look out your left
Look
lateral
out the
visual
left one.
field,
Yeah.
and you can come down 1,000. And so you said you had a distress of about 2 on the left visual field.
Mhm.
What was it on the right visual field?
Oh, it was 8 or 9.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Now,
pretty quickly. I was surprised.
yeah, that's
That
what I'm
was
saying. In
instantaneous.
seconds, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So you're demonstrating what I'm saying, and
yeah,
and so so that's a 7 point difference from 9 to 2,
yeah,
and that's a huge difference. That's it's about almost a 400% increase,
right.
uh, um, and so you have a way, as long as you have some junk mail, of kind of grounding yourself and coming down 1,000, and
Nice.
so just that is helpful,
Yeah. Oh,
and can
totally.
help your audience.
Yep. Wow. Um, that's amazing. Yeah, it's definitely something people need to try because that's fascinating. And I imagine your book, you've got information about how
Yeah.
that and explaining all that, and so people can read through it
I do,
and walk themselves through it.
I explain it in very simple, fun to read
Yeah.
ways. It's not like heavy or academic.
Right.
It's those sort of stories, but it's very meaningful, and
Yeah.
it gives it doesn't uh, uh, skip over the science.
Right.
It goes into it, but in a way that's addressed to the public.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, give us the website one more time.
I'm sorry.
The website. What's the website? One more
Oh,
time.
DUALBRAINE psychology.com. So
Awesome.
dual brain psychology, one word without any punctuation.
Awesome. So yeah, I will put that in the show notes so people can check this out, because I think it's anything that we can do to help get past traumas, anything that we can do to help alleviate that root cause of what's driving behaviors that are not
The
things we want
Army
is huge.
is submitting a grant to study to treat depression and PTSD in enlisted men, and we're trying trying to begin studies for depression, large studies, and we're going to try and study the sunglasses.
Awesome.
So we've got a lot of studies coming up.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. We'll keep doing the great work, Dr.
You.
Schiffer. We appreciate it.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for checking out the Confidence Through Health podcast. Please subscribe, post a review, share this episode with those you love who need a little extra help with their health journey. Visit allinhealthandwellness.com to learn more about the coaching programs that I provide. All episodes are produced by the Social Media Cowboys, your source for all online marketing needs. Go to socialmediacowboys.com for more information.